Hello and welcome back to FailCraft. Welcome to Hearthstone Half Hour. I'm Hammy. It's great to see you. It has been a little while. Do check the video blog if you're on YouTube, which is the last video. I will link it. Let's go for the top left. There, you can see what's been going on over the last couple of months. Been a bit quiet on the streaming front, been a bit quiet on the YouTube front. We are back. So, without further ado, let's jump on in. And we're going to be doing New Player Monday again. We're going to be jumping on in and having a look at a deck in just a second from Seraph. Now, if you frequent hearthporn.com, you'll know Seraph. And if you indeed frequent FailCraft on YouTube, you'll have seen Seraph's Dragon that we looked at a little while ago, around about Blackrock Mountain, when all the dragon cards come in. I like Seraph's decks because he does a nice, long, in-depth guide. He thinks it through, and he likes playing with new ideas. Taking new metas, new cards, and seeing what can work, what can not work. Just having a play, sometimes trying to make things work the best they can. And Seraph did Dragon Paladin. We're going to have a look at Dragon Shaman. And hello to everyone in Twitch chat. You never wanted to, who's having some lumberjack fun. It's Monty Python night in Twitch, and of course you can come and join us, twitch.tv/FailCraft Cast. So, we're going to have a look at Dragon Shaman. What we're going to do is build it. We're going to try and break it down in a new player-friendly way if you're new to Hearthstone. If you're new to Hearthstone but played card games before, have a think about how it works. After we've built it, we're going to jump into a couple of ladder games, see how it goes. Now, it's a brand new season, it's early October at the moment. I'm very low on the ladder. This is not showing this deck at the higher levels of the ladder. Rank 10 upwards, I tend to find, particularly rank 5 upwards. That's where you can really test out a deck and see if it's got competitive chops. But it'll be good to see. We're going to open our little rank 14 case. I'll get a few gold cards. And the X-Star card back. I'm not going to complain for that. All the more to dust. 11 bonus stars, where's that going to take us? Come on, oh, Shield Bearer, I get an instant new card back. Happy days. Is the video frozen for anyone else? You would think my 100 megabyte pipe would be enough. I would think so too. If it's still frozen, let us know. Righty, so let's start building to start with. Dragon Shaman. We're going to have to bin something. I think Deeps the Priest is going to go down, and Shaman's going to get built on in. Righty, so a Dragon Shaman. Right, what is good about dragons? What is good about shamans? So I'm firstly going to have a little bit of chat about Shaman in the Grand Tournament. Shaman in the Grand Tournament has got some more goodness. Now, people, including myself, had a look at Shaman and thought, you know what, totems. Shaman Totem in the Grand Tournament could potentially be a thing. Why is this? Well, if we jump into our Shaman cards, you can see cards like the Tuskar Totemic, summon any random totem for 3 mana. You can then see gaining 1/1 for each friendly totem with the Draenei Totem Carver. You can then fire yourself on in with other such stuff, and once you've grabbed all of these totemy cards, you see a very smooth early game totemy type synergy, including the totem column. Drop it for an overload, you grab in there with the 2 mana, 3 attack, 4 health, beautifully tanky card. Why Shaman Totem could be a thing. Why don't we fill our board with totems, and then of course we can set ourselves up Shaman style. We can stick loads of cards to the board. We could Bloodlust. We could be using things like the Fire Guard Destroyer to bridge the gap from Blackrock Mountain. Lots of nice options there, as well as summoning them. Now, Shaman Totem, people thought would be a little bit 50-50. Some people have written off Shaman and similar. And a big welcome to Zano. I want to say hello to Lud, PG, Andy, welcome everyone joining us on stream. Righty then. So, with that piece of totem, how do dragons fit in? We've got that totemic core. Mid-range Shaman was doing well in sort of Blackrock Mountain meta. There was obviously Mech Shaman that was doing well as well. There are a few Shaman-y decks. People thought that with Blackrock Mountain and sort of later game Shamans, Shaman had a few additions, things such as, I'm going to call it Lava Shock, and try to find it. There we go, Lava Shock. And giving you the ability as well in Blackrock Mountain to reset your overload. If you had a huge overload, and a couple of mana left over, you could Lava Shock, unlock all of that mana for use next go. So it's been a little bit of a changing period for Shaman. How can Dragon Shaman work? Seraph's Dragon Shaman, I would say, is a stall-y deck. It's a control-y deck. You want to try and get to the late game. When you get to that late game, you can use your dragony threats to rain down loads of power, and there's a very key phase in the middle of the game with this deck where you need to make sure that you get your health nice and high and the board under control. So this deck is not for the faint-hearted. I would say the skill cap is medium to medium high. You need to be thinking about numbers, you need to be thinking about spell damage and how you can reach out and win. You need to be thinking about healing and keeping yourself alive and into the game very, very nicely. But you can have huge tempo swings, and it is very, very fun indeed if you can nail it. But if you nail this mid-game, you then have things like Seraph, you have Malygod, and if you're playing against control decks, you've got the usual Shaman suite of crowd control and damage that will do you lots of fun. Things that Shaman doing very well against control warrior. Things you need to think of before we jump into the deck. How low can you drop your HP? How much can you afford to take damage? It's like a game of chicken. It's kind of like I would say a Tinker's Oil Rogue in that way. How low can you afford your HP to go? How low can you go Limbo style before you swing the tempo and grab control of the game, heal yourself back up? Absolutely fine. Can you manage the RNG of Shamans? The spell power and similar. Can you manage your overload properly? Do you know when you're going to get overloaded? Do you know when you're going to need to play that lava shock to undo everything? But it will be very, very strong. What is this deck good against? Control warrior, patron, control paladin, handlock, face hunter and secret paladin, but you need your AoE and your healing wave, so you need to be able to clear the table and heal yourself back up. Otherwise, against face hunter and secret paladin, which we're going to go through in a secret episode, you will suffer a bit. And combo druid, it will suffer and need some draws. So let's go through card by card by card and see what we grab to start with. We're going to grab, for starters, a couple of Earth Shocks. Earth Shock, silencing a minion, dealing 1, that's giving you your very, very strong control option. You can be silencing tanks, you can be picking off minions, you can be doing all kinds of goodness there. A couple of lightning bolts as well. So lightning bolts, of course, you're going for this spell damage finisher. Now you remember I mentioned Malygod. Malygod, rather important. By stacking up on the low mana Shaman spell damage cards, you're giving yourself the option with Malygod and the spell damage to be able to remove stuff if you need to, and if you're managing to get yourself into control into the late game, you can just rain down damage. So a Malygod Shaman, like Game of Thrones Khaleesi type talk, sorry, it's the Dothraki, I do believe it is known. Malygod Shaman is known to us. You take your huge spell damage with Malygod and you throw out cheap spells. Lightning Bolt is that. Now, I like the inclusion of Ancestral Knowledge here new with the Grand Tournament. This is Shaman card draw, but you need to be able to manage the overload with this. Now, if the early game is looking okay, you need to be able to throw this down and recover from that overload, or be able to play a 1-drop next turn if that's a turn 2 drop. Would be very, very awesome indeed. But Shaman getting a bit more active card draw, as well as sort of the slightly later little bit, I need to get it protected of Mana Tide, and 2 cards, of course. Although the overload is a little bit expensive, if you can manage that, that's really going to get yourself accelerated. Remember, you need your control, you need to draw into your cards to swing the tempo into your advantage in the mid game. Until then, you're kind of stalling. You need to make sure you stay alive. A couple of elemental destructions get rained up next, and this is where I think I'm going to have to dip into the dust pool. The dust pool. I don't think I've got elemental destructions. Ooh, it's going to cost some cash, but for you guys, for Seraph, we're going to make that happen. 4/5 damage to all minions with overload 5. Well, 2 of those in our deck. Pretty much means that is super mega uber control. 4/5 damage to all minions with any spell damage whatsoever. That's really clearing your board. So, you know, when we talked about tempo swings, that's a tempo swing. It's really just going to nuke the complete board. If your opponent's rushing you, if they've got masses of big chunky minions, you can even take out with a bit of RNG things like Sludge Belchers, Azure Drakes, you name it. It's going to soften things up. It's going to cause a whole lot of pain. A couple of those in there. A Feral Spirit times 1. Feral Spirit is well, maybe Healing Wave will come in a sec, actually. We won't get too hasty. We'll jump into a Feral Spirit. Just the one Feral Spirit. 2/2/3 Wolves with Taunt, Overload 2. Manage the overload. Remember, we said we needed to stall to the mid game. Feral Spirit nails you down. You can make sure very, very hard to punch through. Your opponent's going to have to start controlling loads of stuff this is buying you turns, time and space. Very, very necessary. Some good tanks. 2 overload is manageable. One of those is generally a happy addition to my Shaman decks. Now we've got 2 healing waves. This is new. Restore 7, reveal a minion in each deck. If yours costs more, restore 14. So if you're playing this in the late game and you know that you've pretty much got big minions left in your deck, you are restoring its chance still. And of course your opponent's minion might cost more, but if you have big minions left over, if you've got your Seraph, your Malygod left, and you're pretty confident, I'm going to be drawing a bigger minion. That is 14 chunky healing straight on you for 3 mana. And this is where we're talking about the huge tempo swings. Healing wave, a massive tempo swing in your favour. 2 of those, if you can pack those and heal up, your opponent is just going to be massive face palming away. So there is your tempo swing. That's what's keeping you alive. A couple of hexes. Remember we were talking about control. That's good. Shamans have that's good against control decks. Hex can really mess your opponent up. 2 of those come in. Remember we also talked about stalling. 2 lightning storms. Now 2 elemental destruction and 2 lightning storm. That is mega AoE control. You're really trying to nail the table down and make sure that you can stay alive to bring that late game goodness in. Fire Elemental tops it off. Fire Elemental, a brilliant basic. Brilliant basic. For a 6/6/5, doing that 3 damage, a chunky minion in the mid to late game, can trade, can anchor, can do all kinds of good stuff. In comes the Fire Elemental there. Let's go to our neutrals. Twilight Guardian. Now this is where my Grand Tournament knowledge is being a little bit tested. Let's go to crafting. 2 Twilight Guardians. And we do not have the goodness. If you're holding a dragon, gain 1 attack and taunt. Let's disenchant some extra cards. Can we get ourselves to 800? I don't think we're going to be able to. We'll have a look at Twilight Guardian and we'll try and see if we can sub something in for it. This is going to be a fairly key card. Battlecry, if you're holding a dragon, gain +1 attack and taunt. Well, we've got a lot of dragons. Throwing this down gives us that stalling ability. This is a really key stall card for us. The 1 attack and taunt mean that we're going to be able to... Can I just buy 1? Is that going to be a thing? Can we make that happen? We're going to take a temporary pals to see if we can shred some stuff. Another Twilight Guardian. We got 1. I need 2. There we go. So Twilight Guardian, as we come back in to talk about it. Twilight Guardian is awesome because we are dragoning, and because this card, if you're holding a dragon, gain 1 attack and taunt, suddenly this gives us a beautiful turn 4 wall, 3 attack and 6 health with taunt. Very, very nice indeed. It's going to really help us stall a bit when it comes to keeping ourselves alive before we can get control of the table. Now, it would be very undragadin-y if we didn't grab an Azure Drake. We describe this as the triple threat, for those of you familiar with singing, dancing and acting. Spell damage works well with all of the spelly things that we've already covered. Battlecry, drawing a card, we like drawing cards. Cards in card games are good. Last but not least, 4 attack, 4 health. A decent enough body that we can use to trade on the table. Now this is an interesting choice by Seraph. He's gone for the Blackwing Corruptor, which, if you're holding a dragon, deals 3. Doesn't look amazing at first glance, but the 5 attack and 4 health is enough to make some trades, do some damage, can remove tanks, enough that your opponent has to use something to get rid of it. And then, also on top of that, the additional 3 Battlecry damaged is quite nasty indeed. Now, we're actually going to have to fish in and see, do I have Nexus Champion Seraph? Do I want to craft him Inspire, add a random spell to your hand? Oh, that is quite tasty. So the Nexus Champion Seraph's kind of purpose is pretty evil. You can run low on cards when you've cleared the table so many times with all the options that you have. So your Seraph and Seraph will recharge your hand. Spells will help you control the table, and it can go well with Malygod. But you can replace it with other things, another Fire Elemental, maybe a Sludge Belcher, or you can go for more early removal. So I'm not going to go for Seraph this time, see if I can craft him or something in future, but he's a tech spot, so you could go for a Belcher, you could go for a Fire Elemental. I think I'm probably going to throw in a Belcher for the time being, because anchoring the table together, going with that stall theme that we were talking about, a Belcher is never a bad thing. It will genuinely, unless you're playing some kind of crazy rushness where it's just not appropriate, in this kind of mid to late game deck, it'll anchor us together very nicely. So next Champion Seraph is in there in Seraph's version. I'm going to go with a Belcher just to tie things together for the time being. However, one thing that I can definitely drop in is Thorson. Thorson the evil, Thorson the very cruel. He generally causes all sorts of pain by every single turn, making all of the cards in your hand cheaper. You can throw down spells, you can throw down 0 mana general lightning death. PG Stark in chat asks, what about Ren Blackhand? He could work. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. Being able to reach out and destroy that legendary would certainly be very cool. We then have a Volcanic Drake, costs 1 less for each minion that dies this turn. Trade minions, if we're going to stray things off the table, we might be able to play a free Drake. Remember, we've got huge control in Elemental Destruction and Lightning Storm. There's a very good chance we could get a free Drake, and free Drakes are good. Now, do I have Chillmore? I do. Taunt and Death Rattle. If you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage to all minions. Now, remember that evil control that we were talking about? If you throw down Chillmore and have a dragon in your hand, unless Chillmore is silenced, he's going to be nerfing the entire table, including your own minions. What this will let you do is, again, remember we're trying to get the table under control, and we're trying to time those tempo swings so we can actually then just Malygos or Ysera, table's clear, opponent's running out of options, we're still alive because we've been using our ridiculous huge healing wave. That's the goal, that's the dream. Throw down Chillmore. She would have done it too if it wasn't for those meddling kids. A good Scooby-Doo reference is always useful. So Chillmore gives you a late game form of control and really just sorting the table out as well. But you need to make sure that you've timed your tempo swing that we were talking about earlier. Are you healed? Do you have the options that you need to finish the game? Are you quite convinced that your opponent's not got anything else nasty in their locker that they're going to be bringing out and hurting you with? So we need another couple of cards, and those another couple of cards are probably going to be our dragonid friends. Oh, I need to get rid of the chill to start with. You see, my high-tech shoebox is meaning that my keyboard is a little bit out of the way. So we're going to be pressing random buttons. Malygos goes with our spell damage cards. I think it's self-explanatory why we have Mali in here. Spell damage +5, all of the spell damage we have, that is GG. Ysera is another dragon that feeds us. It is a big late game card. It will help us with our healing wave healing. It will also recharge our hand, as we mentioned earlier with Nexus Champion Seraph. If we had that in, we're throwing out a lot of cards to, keep the game under control and alive. We're really fighting for control. So Ysera and Next Champion Seraph, if we went for it, help us recharge our hand in the late game. That leaves us on a grand total of 28 cards, and this is where I go through the embarrassing game of what has Hammy accidentally left out. Lightning Storm, no. Fire Elemental, no. Earth Shocks, Lightning Bolts, we've got the Knowledge. The Lava Shocks, there we go. They would kind of be quite useful. I was talking about the ability and the need to be controlling your overload. And by doing that, we need to make sure we've got the Lava Shocks in. That sorts us out. And there is our Dragon Shaman. So that is, as we screenshot and jump into our game shortly, Seraph's Dragon Shaman. So what do we need to be careful with this deck? You can see with this deck, our mana curve looks fairly balanced, but a lot of our early to mid game is control. We're winning the game here. We're making sure that we stay alive here. You can see there is not much when it comes to early face. We need to make sure that we're really keeping the game under control in the early to mid game, and then we time our swing perfectly. When is the optimum time for us to throw down an Elemental Destruction? Throw down one of those too early, and not only are you totally wiped out, but you need to make sure you take out as many of your opponent's targets and key threats as you possibly can. Otherwise you're wasting a big piece of control there. So timing is going to be very key. We're going to try and learn it and have a feel for it as we go. How does this go strategy wise? Aggro and mid range, you need your AoE. So what are we going for? We're going to be going for Lightning Storm because that's the one that doesn't lock you out for like an entire turn. Healing Wave, that's going to be keeping you alive, of course. If you need to burn in the early game, Earthshock, Lightning Bolt, they'll be clearing against anything nasty in the early game that's hitting you in the face. And you probably should keep Twilight Guardian. Twilight Guardian is your tank. Remember, I've thrown in a Belcher for next to champion Seraph, but Twilight Guardian is your earlier tank to keep you alive. Mid-range, if you're playing mid-range decks, of course, anything mid-range against you is going to have lots of mid-range threats, and there will also be 4-5 health kind of targets. Keep your Elemental Destruction. Hex will help you with controls. Healing Wave keeps you alive. And Twilight Guardian. So you're already getting a feel for early to mid-range decks. You're keeping your tanks, your healing, and your control. Tanks for the memories. Twilight Guardian. Healing. Healing Wave. Control. All of your shocky, bolty, zappy goodness. Early to mid-range, pretty simple. But you kind of need to make sure that you're stalling, you're controlling, and making sure that you can swing. Remember, we've got Blackwing Corruptors that can zap for that damage. We can be using things like Fire Elemental as well to also zap for that bit of damage. Soften up targets, make sure we get the clearance with Elemental Destruction or Lightning Storm. And once we've done all of that craziness, we heal ourselves up, we reset our crystals when we need to with Lava Shock, and stall until we can control the table and get things to our satisfaction. And we really need to just turn the game completely around. If we can clear a huge amount or as much of our opponent's board as possible, keep ourselves alive, that's the key thing. Remember, coming back to the beginning of the episode, this is what we were talking about. When is that perfect point to swing? When can we do as much damage as possible to our opponent? How low can we take our own health without dying before we play that healing wave? These are the very, very tough things. So, Charged Hammer. Now that's an interesting choice. You could tech it in. You can pick off minions. Charged Hammer is the Shaman card. Your hero power becomes deal 2 damage and it turns you into a zappy, bolty Shaman. And can be quite handy. What do we do against control? AoE is not so great against control, but with Hex and with burn spells, we need to just make sure we get better value than our opponent over the game. And we still need to try and get great value from Elemental Destruction and Lightning Storm. We need to outvalue our opponents so that when we get to the late game, our big cards will finish things off. A big welcome to Osmots. Good to have you with us. And big welcome to everyone else joining us on stream. Win conditions, right? Well, what can we do? We outvalue them, we outlast our opponent, and then we jump in with Malygod, Ysera, spell damage. Ysera can let you win a game. If your opponent's running out of options and things to counter you with, Ysera, you just play, you get damage, you get the minions, you sort everything out. So that's all very well and good. The other thing you can go for is a little bit of Malygod. So as we said, Malygod is going to be throwing those spells around, doing a whole bunch of nasty damage. If you've managed to get to the late game and you've got Malygod and Lightning Bolt, 8 damage, absolutely mad. So that's a good way for winning. Thorson, if you can nail that in the mid game after keeping the table under control, everything gets cheaper. You've got maybe free spells. You can, in theory, if you Thorson on Malygod, Lightning Bolt, Frost Shock and Lava Bolt, Seraph says you can actually deal 21 damage through a taunt on turn 8, which is very, very true. The principles, we talked about life total. Get your opponent to overextend, clear the board, let yourself take damage. And this is going to be a very interesting one. If you take a lot of damage, if you really let your opponent fill a board and then AoE, you get maximum value. So it's like a game of chicken. That aggro train is going to be rushing towards your face and doing damage. How low can you let your health go before you throw out that AoE and really just crush your opponent? Very, very painful indeed. Right removal, right time, says Seraph. Can be tempting to use an early game Lava Shock, but you can afford to take 14 plus damage in the first few turns provided you have a healing wave. It's much better for when you can get you value on an overload. And that's a very good point, because of course if you're playing an aggro deck, chances are, look at our deck, the big chances that we're going to be drawing bigger minions. I mean, look at our first minion. It's a 4 mana minion if you go through our mana curve. In all honesty, if we're playing an aggro deck, it's very unlikely that they're going to be drawing a minion that's bigger than our 4. So this is why Healing Wave is nice against aggro. This is why Seraph says you can take that early game 14 damage. Interesting. Preparing for AoE, key plays, tempo switch, and Malygod finishes. Craziness. Right. That is our early game deck guide. Thank you for your patience. what we're going to do in the second half of our episode, as we always do, is jump in. We're going to play a couple of ladder games in this instance because we are pretty early in the season. We have nothing to lose at rank 20. We're going to see how this goes. So we're going to try and keep those concepts in mind. Remember our challenges. If we're playing an early to mid game, what do we want to be able to do? Try and draw into all of our early game controls and heals and tanks. We're very much looking for that. Okay, so we're playing a paladin. Now, are we going to guess that this is going to be a secret paladin? Secret paladin could be early to mid game. Healing wave feels good. Lava shock feels good. I'm going to trade because remember we want AoE. I'm going to keep that healing wave in case we get rushed to the face in the early game. The lava shock is quite good for control. I'm going to throw that back and keep the healing wave. He chose the right deck. PG in chat makes a very good point. I do have some issues with choosing the right deck sometimes. It's a little bit, if we draw AoE and healing wave, we should be in a reasonable position here. Earthshock is nice, ancestral knowledge, that will help us out. I can actually overload myself into turn 2. Now this is risky, but I've gone into my lightning storm. Obviously I'm locked out a little bit. Next turn I can Earthshock to control if I need. So hyper aggressive there, but I've drawn into my lightning storm, so I feel a little bit nicer about that. It's going to put us in a position where at least if well, not if, but when. Remember, of course, with muster for battle, with the secret paladins, and with the general token paladins that are quite popular at the moment, throwing down all of those tokens, making them big and nasty. There you go, a nice little deck list there for us. So this, with our opponent dropping a knife juggler, is no massive surprise. We should expect a muster. No muster. There goes a fairy dragon, a little bit of chip damage. Now remember, what we want is our opponent to overextend. If I can tempt my opponent to drop some more, then Lightning Storm is going to do maximum pain. But how long can I afford? I've got the healing wave, remember. There's a very good chance I can throw that down and heal up a lot. Can I afford to wait another turn? I've got an elemental destruction. I do not need to use that now. Lightning Storm is not going to be max effective for a turn or so. I can silence that minion and do a bit of damage. I don't have full spell damage on the table. This is very much a decision of when to Lightning Storm. So this was one of the key things that in the deck guide Seraph was talking about. I am going to experiment and say, do we want a Lightning Storm right now? This is an experiment as well. Not killing this is suboptimal. This is not the greatest Earthshock. What that's doing is just preventing additional chip damage. But because we've got that healing wave in our hand, because we've got the Lightning Storm, we can afford to take our health lower. Remember that in Seraph's guide he says you can afford to get down to sort of 14 or so, you can lose 14 or so health in the first few turns. Not a problem. Now it's feeling like, because this hits the table, that you don't see many Iron Fur Grizzlies in competitive decks. As a rule of thumb. I'm going to now go for the Lightning Storm. Let's hope that the RNG works with us. Doesn't quite work with us, but that gives us the clearance. Now, if we see a muster for battle hit the table now, we didn't stretch our opponent enough. Down goes the shielded minibot. That would have been nice to sort of hit. That would have been nice to get rid of. In comes a reinforce, so nothing too scary. But remember that we want to be... Now another Lightning Storm, I like that. This is where our Earthshock would have been good. Silence and do some damage, get rid of that shield. I could unlock... do 2 and unlock the overloaded crystals. Elemental Destruction is a waste at this point. I don't really want to heal quite so much. This is where playing the Belcher, being overlocked is being locked up is a pain. Maybe I should have waited and played the Belcher. We'll see. So in a spirit of scientific inquiry, I'm going to throw down another totem. Don't want a healing totem. We can take some more damage, but I'm going to be looking to healing wave next turn or Belcher. We need to lock ourselves in. In comes a Frostwolf. This is showing me we're playing a pretty newish deck, but hey, he's beating me at the moment, so I cannot be rude about it. We have our very, very vicious combos here. We have our Elemental Destruction, 4 or 5 damage to all minions, 5 overload. I can unlock myself, of course, afterwards. Next turn I can throw down the Lava Shock and manage all that, but that's not going to let me kill that Frostwolf Warlord. Minions will not have died this turn. The alternative is I can throw down a lightning storm. I can throw this down, but that's going to get beaten up fairly quickly. Again, in a spirit of inquiry, we're going to throw that down. Now, remember that I was looking for...
Not on my
good to see you, Lid. Hopefully see you soon. And welcome back. And of course, if you're on YouTube, come join us, twitch.tv/FailCraft Cast, without defined less. So, this board is nasty. This board is nasty indeed. Now, look at where we are with Elemental Destruction. The problem is that we can actually nerf a lot of the stuff into the ground. In actual fact, if I get lucky with a Lightning Storm, we are so close. I can go for a slightly over-the-top option here. I can Lightning Storm, but Lightning Storm at max does 3, Lava Shock does 2. We're kind of just like 1 damage away. But what I need to do, if I can strip most of this out, I can throw down that Healing Wave and get myself reasonably topped up. So remember, this is the chicken. This is how low can you go. Get a totem there. All of those go down, and now I know that my actual Drake is kind of a 2-drop, which is cool. Now I could mega overload myself and unoverload myself next go. Yeah, I'm going to go for that. Let's go for that. Now this is really heavy overloading. What is in my hand? We will never know. Oh, okay. Right, we'll go over my mana crystals. It's okay, we'll go over the Twitch overlay. You can see it's been that line. There we go. Thank you very much, Shano, for pointing that out. So, in comes the old Peacekeeper, but that has kind of served a purpose. It's nerfed everything off the table. Ooh, in comes the... Sorry for the noise. Blessing of Kings, very nasty. This is a really good run out for this deck. Twilight Guardian, that's going to keep us nicely dragoned up, which is cool, but you can see that already I'm going to have to lava it up, dealing 2 damage and unlocking those crystals. That drops me to 6. I can actually go for a reet nasty clearance play here. Now, this is that going to do it? Ooh, 3 damage with an overload. Come on, RNG. Is there anything I want to play before the 5 overload? 5 damage? No, not quite. Okay, so I still can't heal myself up. Oh, misplay. Should have thrown that totem down. So this could well be a loss. I did not throw the totem down. I've not managed to heal myself up with Healing Wave. Down goes a Dark Iron Dwarf. Oh, down goes an Argus. So I don't really have much choice but to go for a Healing Wave. Here, I could Hex, but that's not really going to help. Come on. Bigger cards. Oh, look at that. So there we go. Not optimally played, but can you just see how Healing Wave has saved our bacon there? That's what we were looking for in the beginning. The Healing Wave just topping us all the way up. In come a few blows. Ooh, body blows there. Very painful. Still big and strong, but our concept is still sound. We have dragons. We can put tanks in place. We can put up a bit. Ooh. Now we can get really awkward, but if my opponent can do a lot of silencing, we could be done. Let's... Now, do I squish things? Tank. Now, can you see how those Twilight Guardians, if we drop those a bunch earlier, then they would have been really nice tanks, and you can just see how, look, RNGesus has favoured us with a Stoneclaw Totem. Okay, so the equality has caused lots of pain, but it doesn't leave us in a great position. Where is our control? Double Hex? Could be pretty interesting. Malygod, but I need to do this to keep in the game really now. Hang on a cotton picking second. He wields the power of Blackwing. So, a suboptimal misplay GG game's gone. Well, that totem could well come back to haunt us. We'll see if it does. Or not. Ooh, trades coming in. Nazi Kraken. Oh, Nazi Kraken, I love it. I love rank 20. But, you know what? While we're learning this deck, our opponent is doing a very, very good job. And let's not be nasty about our opponent's deck. Thankfully I've got a Hex and all of our controls coming in. Do I draw right? I'm going to Drake. Draw cards. We've got a little Earthshock there. We're hanging on in. We didn't have the big tempo swing that we really wanted in terms of throwing down our big control cards.
Well met.
Oh, okay, down goes a death ring. Well played. Well played, my friend. Shall we go for the joust? Come at me, bro. Come on. Yeah! I love it. Joust win. Do I Thorson or do I Drake? I'm going to Drake. Two of those used. Lightning Bolt incomes. We could actually Malygos if I can Thorson and stay alive long enough. Sonic Summoning doing 4 damage with an overload of 1. This is where if we'd actually managed to put a bit more damage down on our opponent earlier in the game, we would have been golden. See, oh, down goes Lepano, in comes Deathwing. Deathwing does not care. Body blow straight to the face. That doesn't work. A body blow is not straight to the face. Chillmore. Oh, deal 3 damage to all minions. Could Chillmore save us in our hour of need? I don't, you know, I'm not even sure if Chillmore is going to save us in an hour of need, but we'll see. I think he might, if I get this right. So, that comes in. And that comes in. I didn't need to do that because the 6 would have taken out the 6 would have taken him out, so that's a misplay. What I really should have done was just leave the 6, because why have I taken Deathwing's health down so low with that additional damage? Not necessary. Unless of course a spell or something came in. If I wanted to be hyper safe, I would have got him down to 3, because the 3 will be dealt unless Chillmore is silenced. So, this is actually turning into quite an entertaining game. Misplay Central. It's been a while. So, but you see, this is where the just outlasting people comes into play. Look, obviously I can't quite play Malygos next turn, but getting the value, we talked, or Seraph talked in his guide about getting value, making sure that we make the trades in a very roundabout, very misplay, bad kind of way. We have made those trades, and now when it's getting to the end of the game, our opponent is running out of steam. And now we can start doing all of this kind of fun goodness. So all we need is just some spell damage cards now. 2 mana elemental destruction, misplay village. There's a little bit misplay village today.
Ready, sir.
But now you can see the entire board is being filled up. We've already healed ourselves. Remember, we've healed ourselves for 28 health using our various cards. Now, can I finish things? Can my opponent finish me?
I wield the power.
Oh, I'm not wielding a dragon. 9-10 damage to all minions. I don't really want to do that. I'm going to do that. That's a hyper safe play. 9-10 damage. 3-9-10 damage to all minions. If it was 9-10 damage to all characters. I could actually nuke the entire board. Perfect PM card, says Zano. Yeah, that's definitely the case. So, I think we have in our hearts a little bit of a finisher here. Let me just work it out. Let's go for the super uber mega hyper safe.
Well played. I'm almost out of cards.
Alrighty then, so there we go.
Well played.
That's it.
Well
Nicely done.
played.
So we misplayed all over, but the principles there are sound. So that was a very hard fought one to start, but that's very cool. So it's but a one game. We normally try and play a couple of games. We're gonna have to finish that for now, but to try and keep ourselves to our Hearthstone half hour or thereabouts. That's going to be it. So thank you for tuning in, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on twitch.tv/FailCraft Cast. That was our introduction to Seraph's Dragon Shaman. Now, if you want to find the deck list, I'm going to link it in the chat. You can also see it if you're on YouTube underneath the description, which is no problem at all. So thank you for tuning in. That's a nice fun deck. We had a look at it. We jumped into a couple of games with it. That single game we saw how we saw most of the key things about the deck. When do we heal? When do we use our AoE? When do we create that big tempo swing that's going to let us win? I don't think I got the healing broadly right, but I wasn't quite able to jump on in and use the AoE in a way that got most value from clearing the table. So our opponent came back a bit, we were under a bit of pressure, but we then managed to come through for the win. So do come and join us again. If you are on YouTube, come visit twitch.tv/FailCraft Cast. We are going to be setting a new schedule. Do throw us a follow on Twitch, you'll get notifications when we go live. If you're on YouTube, do sub or let us know what you think below. Do comment, let us know what we could do better. It's been a while, so we're just getting back into our Hearthstone videos and streams now. Do forgive me as I get up to speed with the meta again. And last but not least, a big thank you very much to good to see you, Otsmods, welcome, Andy, Darkling, PG, Zano, Lud, and everyone who's joined us. And if you're on stream, don't go away. Just quickly say hello in the chat after, and we may silent stream on a little bit too. So thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully see you soon. We'll be back later this week, and check out Twitter @FailCraft Casts to see when we're going to be going live. This is FailCraft. I've been Hammy. Take it easy.